Today I am going to share with you how I work through the first several rounds of the Wave of Change shawl and blanket pattern. It has a very small cast on at the center, and I'd like to show you how to use the magic loop technique in order to work the 8-stitch cast on. So let's get started. I have a very small ball of yarn for this little demo, and I'm gonna take a longish tail and I'm gonna make a slip knot. Once I have a slip knot, I'm gonna have my tail in the front and my working yarn in the back. I'm using a 40-inch, let me show you the length of my cable, a 40-inch circular needle. Mine have seen better days because they've been loved quite a bit. But yeah, 40 inches will allow you to work magic loop with comfort and ease. So I am inserting my needle into this slip knot and then tightening the slip knot. I'm now going to cast on 8 stitches.
That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Then the pattern tells you to prepare to work magic loop by putting 4 of these stitches on each needle. So I need to transfer 4 of these stitches onto this needle. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to slip my cast on onto the cable, and then I am going to reach in between. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to reach in between these 2 stitches and pull the cable through them. When I do that evenly, you can see I now have 4 stitches on each needle. Right now, my little purl bumps right here from the cast on are facing up, so I'm going to turn my work around. And now I have the right side, you can see the cast on, the knit side of the stitches is facing up. Of note, your tail is going to be facing the right side. And because we're working around the perimeter of our project the entire time, we're always going to be working on the right side. So what I did was I used a darning needle to weave this tail into the back side or the wrong side. Right now, what I'm going to do with my tail is I'm going to make a little ball so that I can differentiate it from my working yarn. I don't ever want to confuse this little tail and my working yarn. Everyone has a different way of doing this. There's no right or wrong way. I just made a little loose ball right there. Okay, so here I am, and we're ready to work magic loop. For right now, I'm going to move the tail to the back here, and I am going to grab stitch markers. I've got colored stitch markers because I need one of my 4 stitch markers for this project to be a different color. I need to distinguish it from the other 3. So let me pick my 4 markers. Okay, here you can see that I selected 4 markers. I'm going to move these to the side. And this is kind of goofy, but it's an easy way for perhaps if you're new to this that you might remember. I picked green, green, green as in go, 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 stop. So the red is going to be my beginning of row marker. The abbreviation is BOR for beginning of round. We're working in the round. So I am now, per the pattern, going to place my beginning of round marker on my needle. That is the needle that has the work attached to it. This is going to be my right hand needle. And we're instructed to work in the round here. We're gonna join in the round, being careful not to twist our stitches. So I can see that I'm not twisted, or my work is not twisted, because all of the knit stitches are facing up here, the little bumps. Great. Now I'm going to join in the round. That means I'm going to pull my working needle around. And this can get really tricky, or shall we say fiddly, in the beginning. because your work is so small. But this is going to require a little bit of patience from you. You can see my marker is flying around on that cable right now. That's all gonna work itself out shortly. Now, I'm a continental knitter, so I'm holding my yarn in my left hand, and I'm gonna go ahead and knit all of the stitches on the other needle.
That's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, the pattern tells you to knit all of the stitches in this round. I am going to pull the cable through here so that the empty stitches are now on a needle, and I'm going to turn my work around, and now I'm in go mode again, right? Both of my needle tips are pointing to the right. The working yarn is coming from the bottom needle here. We could call it the front needle here. And I'm going to now knit the other 4 stitches. By the way, my beginning of round marker, the red marker, is still flip-flopping all over on the cable. That's okay. All right, that concludes the setup round. Now we're gonna go to round number 1. I am going to turn my work around. This is where this is going to require some patience from you, and you can see that my beginning of row marker is still there on the cable. I'm going to pull the cable through, set myself up for that go mode, as I have called it, where both my needle tips are pointing to the right. Moving my little tail to the back here so it's not in the way. And the round 1 instructions say knit front and back all stitches. So I'm going to pull my working needle out. And now I'm using this really long cable so that I can work on this needle. I'm going to slip the beginning of row marker onto my working needle, and I'm going to knit front and back all of these stitches. That means I'm knitting through the front leg and through the back leg of each and every stitch. That means that we're going to double our stitch count from 8 stitches to 16.
That's 2. I'm knitting both legs, front and back,
of all the stitches. When you get to the end of the stitches that are on this needle, you can see we now have 8. I am going to pull my needle through. This is going to be a little loud here. There we go. Pull the needle through, or push it through, whichever you prefer, so that now all of the stitches are on 2 needles. We have 8 on this needle and 4 on the bottom one. So I'm going to turn my work around, and now I am prepared to I'm in go mode, right? I'm going to pull this needle out, come around, and knit front and back on these 4 stitches. Here we go.
knit front and back. That's 1.
That's 2. Well, that's great. I just dropped a stitch, so that's cool. You can see how, because this yarn is nice and thick, I'm able to pick up that stitch. It's always good when I get to have a little oops moment during the tutorial, because hopefully that provides some ease for you. If you find that this is fiddly and your brain isn't quite wrapping around the concept of magic loop, don't worry about it. You just saw me make a mistake. So take your time, pause the video if you need to, and keep going. Just have faith that you are going to get this, because I have faith in you that you are going to get this. So now I have 8 stitches on this needle, 8 stitches on the cable, so I'm going to pull my cable through. I'm going to be careful not to lose my little red marker, right? I'm going to pull the cable through, or push it, whichever you prefer. Both of our needle tips are pointing to the left, and we always want to point to the right in order to start the next round. So I am going to turn my work around, and we are in what I call go mode. Now we're going to incorporate our 3 green markers. This little sucker keeps flying around. I warned you that it would. I'm going to pull my working needle out since both tips were pointing to the right, and I'm going to slip the beginning of round marker onto my right hand needle. Here's my working yarn. The instructions tell me to knit 4, place marker, knit 4, place marker, knit 4, place marker, and then knit back to this red beginning of round marker. So let's do that. I'm going to knit 4, that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what we're doing is we're creating the 4 sides of our box. I'm placing 1 marker. I'm going to knit another 4, and place another marker. Now I'm going to turn my work around. Here we go. In this case, I'm going to be careful not to lose that green one. So instead of pulling the cable through, I'm going to go ahead and push the needle through. Now I'm in go mode. I've got my 2 needle points pointing to the right. And I am going to pull my front needle out and begin to knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to place the 3rd and final marker, and then I'm going to knit to the beginning of round marker, which is the red one, remember? And there it is. It's flying around, but it's here. So you will see, let me get my cables and my needles all sorted here. Okay. What you're gonna find is that the red marker, marker number 1, so if I turn my needles around to the side, back to go mode, the beginning of round marker and marker 3, this one over here that's flying on the cable, hopefully you can see that, those 2 are gonna flip-flop all over the place for a little while. And that's just because our work is so teeny tiny. But it's essential that we use these markers to hold space for what comes next. And then as our work grows, you will see that these 2 will get locked in. So try not to get irritated by them floating around like this. You know, it's just kind of chilling out here all by itself. Keep going, be patient with it, and you'll see why it's so essential to have those markers where they are. Okay, now we are at round 3. Now this is really fun because now you're gonna see our work actually turn into something. Right now it looks like a mishmash, but this is where we begin to make increases that shape our square, and our increases are going to happen at each marker point. And we are going to place an increase at either side of each marker, making a little marker sandwich. And that's what's going to grow our pattern into either the shawl, if you're making the shawl, or the blanket. Okay, so let's go. We're gonna start from go mode with our 2 needles pointing to the right. We're gonna pull out our working needle, and the first thing we're instructed to do is knit front and back. So that means that I started the round with an increase right here, okay? Then I am going to knit to 1 stitch before the marker. There's my 1 stitch. I'm going to knit front and back, slip the marker, knit front and back. That's what I mean by an increase sandwich, because the marker is sandwiched in between the 2 increases. Then I'm going to knit to 1 stitch before the marker. That's this one because our floating marker is over here. And I'm gonna make my little sandwich. I'm going to knit front and back, Here we go. Slip the marker from the left needle to the right. I'm going to turn my work around so that my 2 needle points are pointing to the right. That's making some funny sounds. There we go. And since I made 1/2 of our sandwich, I have 1 increase over here, slip the marker. I'm going to make the other increase. So we're gonna knit front and back. Keep going, gotta do that one more time. We're gonna knit to 1 stitch before the next marker and make our little sandwich. Knit front and back. Slip the marker, knit front and back. Okay, and then we've got a few more stitches here. Let me sort through my cable. It's a little twisted there. That got a little funky. There we go. And for the last time, we're following the instructions. We're gonna knit to 1 stitch before the marker. We have 3 stitches left. 1 stitch before the marker. My marker is floating around on the cable, so I'm gonna put it right here so that you see where it is. I'm gonna knit to 1 stitch before the marker. I'm gonna knit 1, knit 2, and then I'm going to knit front and back. Okay, so now let's look at our work. Can you see that we made a little square? Is that evident to you that we have, here's my little stop, right? That's my beginning of round marker. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches on this side, little corner marker, 6 stitches, corner marker, 6 stitches, corner marker, 6 stitches. If you have what I have, congratulations, you are right on track to knit this pattern. Now let's keep going. We are going to knit the next round. We're instructed to just knit all the rows, all of the stitches, which means it's a rest round. And then we're just gonna repeat what we just did. Go ahead and knit the next round. Just all knit stitches all the way around. Okay, well now we are at round 5, which is pretty much identical to round 3. I'm ready to work the next round. The next round is a rest round, so we're just going to knit all of the stitches, and then we're going to switch back and forth between the increase round and the rest round so that our square can grow every other round. On the round where we're making increases, since we have 4 markers, let me go ahead and slide that guy over here. We have 4 markers and each marker gets 2 increases. That means that every other round has an increase of 8 stitches, which is fun because it means it grows quickly. I hope you enjoy this process. Keep going until you get to round 9, and then remember you're gonna make your first round of purl stitches. Instead of knitting on the rest round, you're going to purl. I will meet you there. Okay, my light is changing here because it's early evening and I'm losing the light, but hopefully you're able to see this with this beautifully hand-dyed yarn by Julie Asselin. I have knit the first 9 rounds, and when I kept saying that we were making an increased sandwich, that meant we were increasing here and here, here and here, here and here, and here and here. And what you see is that we get these beautiful 4 lines. The increases are stacked one on top of the other, and they are forming our little square, our first square. So these are 9 rounds. My tail that we made a little ball out of is now on the wrong side because we used this darning needle to move it to the back. All right, now I've got all 4 markers and we're ready to work round 10. And the reason I stopped here is because the 10th, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, keep going. Every 10th round is going to be purled. Now, how often, stop here and think, how often do you get to knit in stockinette and not have to purl on the wrong side? That's very rare. But because we're knitting around the perimeter, going around and around and around, our work is always face up, so we've only knit up to this point. Now you get to practice purling. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it's an essential part of knitting, so I am neutral. I have no ill feelings against purling, but I thought that it was kind of cool that for people who don't like to purl, this is a pattern where you get to knit forever and very rarely or very seldomly purl. Okay, so I'm bringing my yarn to the front so that I can purl the first stitch of round 10, and I'm gonna go ahead and purl the whole round. My continental purling might look different to your continental purling, or if you knit in English style, that's cool too. I'm just gonna go ahead and purl all the way around my square, and I'll meet you at the end. Well, here we are. We worked together on the first 10 rounds of the Wave of Change shawl and blanket pattern. My yarn is a little twisted there, but that's my tail, so I'll just tuck it underneath. And your work should look like mine. I've got my beginning of round marker on the upper right hand corner, then 3 green or go markers. Yours could be any other colors or shapes. But this was really fun for me. I hope you have felt that this is joyful and fun for you to work too. You're gonna keep going, doing the repeats that you've done up to this point until you make your shawl or blanket the size that you want it to be. And you'll see how versatile this pattern is. You'll be able to make a shawl, a blanket, a plain blanket, a baby blanket, anything your mind can think of, you can use this pattern for. Thank you so much for knitting with me and for supporting my small business by purchasing this pattern. If your friends and family really like it and they want to make one too, please encourage them to buy a copy of the pattern, because that helps me to keep working and keep producing patterns for you. Thanks again. Have a lovely day and have lots of fun. Bye-bye.